to do a hand wave and say that any computer system built by Palantir or anybody else, at least as we sit here today, is going to give you this personal chatbot type assistant, real time on the ground. The chatbot cannot get you through a firefight. When you get in a real wartime scenario where you're not in that perfect training environment anymore, you're immediately going to go to your intuition, because in many circumstances, it's the only thing you have left. So I'm not a Luddite, but I don't trust that stuff. Like, why would I? I mean, at the end of the day, we haven't had this stuff that long. So just because we are in this technology-rich environment in America, in the Western world, and it's easy to do the hand wave and, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Maybe. We'll see.
The first part of episode 6, we're going to focus on the physical mission of the Naval Academy. Of course, this place is all about the moral, mental, physical development of midshipmen. We'll emphasize the physical. Now, artificial intelligence as a decision support tool for leaders has some great promise. There's a lot of things it can do for us, with us, but it does have some limitations as well. There's a twist in this one, so stay tuned to the end.
Welcome to the Huberman Lab podcast. And now for my conversation with Coleman Ruiz. Coleman Ruiz, welcome.
Thank you. Very excited to see you.
It's great to have you here.
I just listened to Coleman. I just listened to his podcast on Andrew Huberman, and it was very eye-opening. It was very funny listening to him and having it relate so much to my athletes.
So, Coach, we're covering a lot of ground with this series on artificial intelligence and tying lessons not only to the Naval Academy here, but what midshipmen will experience after graduation and commissioning. I find it interesting that you've already used a podcast from one of our graduates to inspire midshipmen here at the Academy. Tell me how you came across Coleman Ruiz's podcast, and why did you use Coleman Ruiz's podcast?
So I'm always trying to find ways to connect, I guess. I'm never going to have that life experience, but I think I can learn from others. So being able to listen to Coleman's podcast and also from Special Warfare, I mean, I think that's something that is quite fascinating. And so again, just trying to learn. And so I sent it to Emily, I think, because she's interested in special warfare. So
Sure.
It was just something that I thought would resonate with her, but a lot of the topics I think would resonate with her too.
Yes, Kim sent me Mr. Ruiz's podcast, and it was about 3 hours long, and I watched all of it.
So much of what you shared has meaning regardless of people are male, female, young, old. So
It's always great to see you. Appreciate the time. It was a joy. Thanks.
likewise.
Kim's suggestion with the podcast does connect to AI. I think it's interesting how we're comparing algorithm-driven suggestive models on a lot of social media, different social networking sites, because content that's suggested for you so that you continue consuming content is different both in intent and in the actual nature of the content compared to a person who knows you intimately and their only intent is to further your curiosity and to further your development. That's something like Coach Kim and I have. I really look up to her and respect her, and I wanna be a successful woman in a career that she finds meaning in, and also be a successful mother like her. And that just the admiration and the relationship of respect and trust is something that's really profound, and obviously you can't get that with a machine. I mean, I'm never gonna look up to a machine. I'm never gonna be like, wow, thank you so much for the video suggestion, YouTube. You know, I wanna be just like you. No, I don't know. It's good to have someone to look up to and to strive towards.
We're gonna sing over there right after it's done, so start getting people in the infield.
I appreciate that some of the women look at me as a role model, but I look at them. They really are our country's leaders and the role models for the young women who get to see them compete, just as they had before them. Some of them, many of the reason why they got into the sport, getting to see some inspiring women push themselves to the limit.
Yeah, role modeling is so important. I mean, I think the research also backs that up, that inspiration is derived from modeling. You can inform them, you can direct them to do certain things, but for the type of student athlete you're looking for for the type of midshipmen they need to be, it's going to rely a lot on inspiration. How do you think about this concept of inspiration and what is required to inspire your student athletes?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You can tell people to do stuff, right? But that's not necessarily effective. I think them experiencing it for themselves, or having kind of that day-to-day person to look up to, whether it's our coaching staff or it's an athlete on the team, upperclassmen on the team, being able to have that example, that role model, I think is really valuable. So we can set the examples through, as coaches, but we look to our firsties, we look to our captains to also be upholding that standard.
Emily is the captain of our team.
If you felt like there was a moment where you wanted to quit, because I know I had a few of those, the one thing you had to do was take a look to your left or to your right, and you make eye contact with someone who's been training with you for months and putting in the work for months and seeing you at your lowest and picking you up when you fall back down again and again.
It means a lot to know that it was a vote. So to know that your peers and the people you love thought you were responsible enough for that role.
This is family worth fighting for, FWFF. And you guys are family worth fighting for, and just thank you so much.
So all of these things that you're describing about leading by example, about modeling, whether it be on the coach side or the student athlete side, it's all about human relationships. Computers can't replace that, or can they?
I would have a hard time believing they could replace it all. I think they could be used as a tool, but I do think what we're talking about with the, leadership aspect, I don't understand, or I just don't know enough how that could be replaced through AI.
The biggest way that we use AI would be the smartwatches. That communicates their phone. They'll share their mileage or their running logs that way with me so that we can make adjustments for my observations. Are they training too much, too little? Where do we need to make some adjustments?
I interact with AI every second of every day. This watch right here and this Oura ring. And so the two of them interact together. I have it on when I sleep, I have it on when I run, I have it on when I eat, and they track biometrics like your heart rate recovery, your pulse oximetry, your resting heart rate, your active heart rate, calories burned. It estimates your VO2 max.
So this is a Garmin predicted VO2 max.
And then based on your training, it'll project, are you overtraining, undertraining, peaking? Sometimes it's not accurate, but the more you wear it and the more data it collects, the more accurate it becomes. And I am obsessed with that data.
And then this is the funny part. It has a race predictor.
The only thing that this watch gives me that a person couldn't is consistent, massive amounts of data on individualized data, which is important for my planning, for my mileage, my workouts for the week. It's important for understanding the way my body responds to training. But there's something it doesn't give me that only a human can give me, is insights on me as a holistic person. This isn't a holistic training device. It's incredibly helpful, but it's not holistic.
I didn't really ever think of my watch as like AI until kind of setting up to talk about it in this interview. I would be interested to go even deeper kind of with information, like with getting regular blood work and testing a little bit more. And watches don't have that yet, but I'm sure there's systems out. Yeah. Right. Those are the kind of tools I think I get excited about AI. How can we test the limits of the human body even further, but not necessarily that whole larger like team coaching inspiration aspect, but how do we physically get them to, see, hey, based on what the data is showing, you should be able to run a 4-minute and 30-second mile, but you're not. So where is that disconnect? How are we missing that out? But sometimes those metrics, and I've talked to my athletes about this before, sometimes those metrics are almost limiting. An athlete like Emily, her workouts might show she's, in shape for a 16:10 5K. Well, then she goes on the track and she runs 16:06. And I'm like, okay, well, either I'm not calculating it right as a coach, or there's something in her that is able to push past what sometimes what science would maybe say, what like all those metrics and biofeedback is showing.
You can only get so precise with these measurements. It's tough to measure the human heart. You might say, other than beats per minute.
Motivation.
When I say heart, motivation, will, and things like that. So what are the areas? How do you raise that end of the game up? Again, we'll go back to the human part of this. How do you raise that part of the game?
Knowing your athletes, I think. Something's not right. I'm noticing that something's not right with this athlete for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks pass by. Okay, let's get some blood work. Let's look into this. Whereas maybe that immediate feedback of technology down the road will let us nip it in the bud before it becomes more of that deterioration of performance, like injuries.
So I was having foot pain in my right foot. It was like this cold, scary, sharp pain that caused a gut reaction, like something is wrong. I went to the doctors, and the second I went to the doctor's office, he looked at me, he looked at my foot, and he said, I think you have a stress fracture. So we were towards like the championship part of our season, and then I still had this thought in my mind of, okay, one more race. And what's one more race gonna do? And there were 2 doctors there, my coach and me, and they said, for the rest of your life, you will suffer the consequences. If you run on this thing and it gets even a little bit worse, you're gonna have to live with that. That was a Debbie Downer moment. It sounds so silly because people would say, it's just a race. It's not just a race. It was my last ever chance to do that sport, and I had to walk away from it.
When I heard that Emily wasn't going to be able to compete, finish her first year with the team, it was heartbreaking. I've been able to see her, not just over the 4 years here, but recruiting her, like the enthusiasm and love she has for the sport, but also her team, the goals she had set out for herself that she wasn't going to realize at the end of her first year. So I've been living that with her, even her freshman year when it was terrible. Like academics were terrible, her dad was deployed, she was kind of, a mess. And then being able to see her persevere, that human spirit of hers that cannot be crushed, and to see her rise above it, and to have that ripped away, it's devastating. Devastating for her, but also, for us as a team.
How did she respond in the face of that devastation?
Asking a lot of questions, figuring out if there was a way around it. Can I race actually? Like, I absolutely was very empathetic to her situation.
It was a choice not to race, but it's not a choice to go and support my team. It's a no-brainer. I think I can live with not doing one last race for my own individual glory or whatnot, but to not be there for my team just because it would hurt me to be there is unacceptable. I would never do that. The director of this series had asked ChatGPT whether or not I should attend the meet. And it responded by saying there were 4 considerations. There was the physical consideration of making sure that attending the meet didn't affect your health, which I guess it kind of did because I was jumping up and down on my foot and I shouldn't have done that, but who cares? The second consideration was emotional. That was the most important one for me personally, but it said it's probably gonna take a toll on you if you go to this meet and you're not competing, which I'm sure the algorithm, I'm annoyed that the AI was so accurate because machines don't have emotions, and I'm annoyed that it accurately predicted how emotional that would be. And then there was like the leadership perspective that it mentioned that you're a leader of the team, you should be there to motivate and support your teammates. And then I think the last one was for closure, and because you'll get a lot out of being with your team, and it's the last potential race, so you should definitely go because it's a sport you find meaning and joy in, so you should attend. And unfortunately, it looked a lot like the analysis I did when I was doing my decision to go. And the part that stuck with me the most is the first sentence of the response said, "I'm sorry to hear about your injury." And that made me chuckle because that's what I heard from my teammates. That's what I heard from my parents. That's what I heard from anyone who saw me on a scooter in a boot for the last month. "Oh, I'm sorry about your injury, Emily. That sucks." And here I am hearing it from an AI, which that sentence, "I'm sorry," there is no I, it's not an I. And also, even if there were, it's not sorry, they don't have feelings, it's a machine. But the algorithm is so effective that it understands the nature of the subject that the person who's asking it about is emotional and involves a loss, and involves pain. And so of course, the level of iterative learning in the machine learning algorithm knows that it's that kind of situation. So it responds with a placation. It placates you. "I'm sorry." It's good, it's effective, and it made me feel better, and it made me annoyed that I felt better because we're emotional people, we're easily manipulated by something that doesn't have emotions, which is kind of funny if you think about it. Sometimes it's not accurate, but the more you wear it and the more data it collects, the more accurate it becomes. And I am obsessed with that data.
I am obsessed with that data. It is so easy to become obsessed with the amount of information that is tracked by devices like this Oura Ring and the watch. Now, we have to also remember the limitations of this type of information and all this data, because it tracks the physical heart and all the component parts of the body, but it doesn't track the metaphorical heart. That is to say, grit, toughness, resilience, those things that can't really be measured in the same way.
It's the last potential race, so you should definitely go because it's a sport you find meaning and joy in, so you should attend. And unfortunately, it looked a lot like the analysis I did.
Unfortunately, it looked a lot like the analysis I did. This stuff is really good, right? This is another thing that we could not have imagined just a few years ago. It's gotten better so quickly that it provides information, and she finds it annoying in some cases because it's telling her things that oftentimes we would have thought could only be accomplished by a coach or a mentor, or results you could come with up to yourself. But in this case, it's provided by artificial intelligence. And that just speaks to how quickly this technology has changed. And the perhaps scary part, annoying part, might be that it's getting better so much more quickly as we move forward, as the data sets build.
It's good, it's effective, and it made me feel better, and it made me annoyed that I felt better because we're emotional people, we're easily manipulated by something that doesn't have emotions, which is kind of funny if you think about it.
That is a very powerful finding. The fact that we have great potential for being manipulated in this, because it's telling you things that you did not imagine a machine could tell you. We're emotional people, as Emily says, and it's true. And the algorithms are replicating emotions such as empathy. And with that lies perhaps the greatest peril that we're examining in all this, and that is the peril of being manipulated by machines, being driven to behave or believe in certain ways that the machine wants us to behave or believe. That peril is worth unpacking a little bit further.